All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Complex Show. Excited to be here. We got a lot to cover
We
today.
do. We have a lot to
And
cover
The
today.
world never stops.
Well,
That's,
not
that's bottom line.
that's true.
Yeah.
Well, not only does it not stop, but right now we are watching African countries' governments fall like dominoes.
Which is a signal. You know what?
Mhm.
That's a signal for, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, it's a signal for it's now or never.
Yeah.
But it's
Oh,
also,
your microphone.
oh,
It might be useful for
sure
to
you
have
guys
the microphone.
probably didn't hear what I said at the beginning. So, well, at least I have a loud.
Yes, you do. It's true.
So, on a serious note, it's Africa saying to the Western world, it's
Yeah.
over. We're done.
Yeah.
We're done with our resources being squandered because Africans are not getting anything back for it. So, and this is what we're going to be talking about today, specifically the country of Gabon.
Yes. So Gabon is actually a very interesting example for a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
The first is we've actually been talking a lot about the French colonized countries really effectively kicking France out. And mostly for the reason that
Yeah.
the natural resources that Africa has are not going to its people. It's going to
the
France.
European, yeah,
And it's
so.
going to
Now-
Europe.
Now you see why the European Union wants to send the
Mhm.
civilian military mission.
Right.
Yeah,
The
so-
civilian military
yeah.
mission that we talked about
So
yesterday.
that's one topic. What are the other 2 or 3 topics we're going to cover?
All right. So we are also going to look at the fact that the British government just came out and told the everyday regular Briton that they need to turn their heaters off at night to save the climate, more or less.
Is there climate or is they don't have enough energy?
Yes. And so that's really the deal, because they're not talking about the fact that basically into Europe, we have the Nord Stream pipeline that was sabotaged.
Mhm.
We now have the pipeline that was meant to go through
Niger.
Niger that is not happening anymore. And there was a decision for the pipeline to come from the United States that was also canceled. So right now they're having some real problems in terms of energy.
Well, it looks like the plan by the US was well executed,
Right.
if I may use the term.
I-
Good. I look
amazing.
forward to that conversation.
And then our third topic is, this is very interesting. At least this is very interesting to me. That is that the US has actually doubled its uranium imports from Russia. So although we
Wow.
have this talk of sanctions,
We get
it's
any
the pick
uranium?
and choose, it seems, in terms of
Yeah.
sanctions.
Wow.
So we'll go into some of the numbers that have been reported about the U.S. imports of uranium from Russia specifically.
Well, that would be interesting.
Very,
Great.
very interesting.
And the last topic will be about German and China.
Yeah. So
Now that one is very, very interesting, but at the same time, because the resources for it, it's from a
Right.
variety. I mean, I looked over for those.
yeah,
It's a variety of sources,
yeah,
and there are some YouTube videos on that for China canceling the
Yeah.
car deal with Germany.
so this is very interesting. So I feel like this falls into the category of rumor, because we can't really confirm it, but
Yeah.
it's in enough places that I think it should be said. I think you're right.
I did read on it on Reddit,
Yeah.
and I have the link for all that. And
Yeah.
we will put the link for you guys to know, because even I had somebody from Germany
Mm-hmm.
send the comment saying, "Hey, I live in Germany and didn't hear of that."
Right.
Well, I mean, I won't be surprised, because the government is not going to disclose everything. Look, for us, what just happened, and I'll give you guys a quick example.
Mhm.
Did you know how many children were missing in Maui?
Oh no, how many? I don't know that.
Well, I heard 2 numbers as of yesterday. About 1,500 children are missing.
What?
The first time we heard was about 100 children.
Oh my
And
god.
I heard it through I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
the video
Yeah.
from my Twitter feed
Yeah.
that mentioned about up to 1,500 children.
Up to
Let me see.
1,500
It's because when the
children.
fire,
Yeah.
there was no sirens, there were
Yeah.
nothing, So And just to tie
Oh,
it to
that's
this
awful.
German
Yeah.
China, did we hear about it from our media?
No, absolutely
we
not.
didn't. So I can see the logic
Yeah.
that will be the same in Germany. They won't disclose something like, because that will be a big blow to not only
Huge blow.
Germany,
Yeah.
but to the EU as a
Yeah.
whole.
So I don't know where this is coming from, but I think it's worth
talking about, and we'll
it.
let you guys decide for yourself.
Right.
We'll provide the links and all that stuff. So let's get into our first one about
President
Gabon.
Bongo.
Bongo. Now, this might shock you.
Okay.
You want me to tell you
I'm ready.
something?
I would love to be shocked. I'm ready.
When I was a kid,
Yeah.
I still remember Omar Bongo.
Mhm.
Omar Bongo is this guy's dad.
Yeah.
Omar Bongo has been in power for 42 years.
Crazy.
And the last image that I saw of him was with what's his name? The former French president Jacques Chirac.
Mm-hmm.
Jacques Chirac, who
Yeah,
used
Jacques
to
Chirac.
be the mayor
remember.
of Paris,
Yeah.
became president. And Omar Bongo, that's how far it goes.
Wow.
Now, here is the thing that I want all of you
Mhm.
guys to understand, because this coup, you can call it coup again, or you call it revolution. I'm
Right.
starting to call them revolutions.
I understand why.
Because when you have the public support, and this is exactly what
Mhm.
they did it, which has happened yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
This one has the two angles to it. Geopolitical, of course, because
Yeah.
it's going to change the landscape, but also economic.
Mhm.
Because if you know one thing about Congo,
Yeah.
and I think I did dig enough to learn about it, and I will share some videos with some photos and videos. Of
Mhm.
course, Elizabeth has some. What is Congo is known for. Here's the thing:
Mhm.
it's a member of the OPEC,
Yep.
oil producing exporting countries, also rich in oil, gas, as well as reserves in diamond, uranium, and gold,
and manganese.
Yeah.
Which is apparently used for technology.
Yeah. So you put that in perspective,
Yep.
and you said to yourself, why all of a sudden the European Union send in?
Right.
Yeah. So for the Congolese individuals, people, that's
Mhm.
why they are supporting the military who
Right.
decided to take over.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the head of the military who did the revolution or the coup, whatever you
Mhm.
want to use the term, he already said it.
Yeah.
He's not interested in power.
Yeah.
What he's interested in is to ensure that, because the elections, which, by the way, I have an image of the current president, who is the son of Omar Bongo. Let me share it with you guys, so you'll see. Okay, picture. So the idea of what they don't want is they don't want. This is the guy right here. That's the one who just won the elections on August 26th.
Right.
And
he's under house arrest right now.
And what the military did, they took his son.
Yeah.
Put him on a house arrest also.
Yeah.
The reason being because what happened in Congo, Congolese, in Gabon, Gabon has what they call hereditary.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing, right? So it's a democratically elected government, but it's somehow also hereditary.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very interesting how long, let's see. So his father was actually in power right before him. So his family has been in power since I think the 1960s.
Yeah. 42 years.
42 years. And now he's also in power, but somehow it's still democratically elected. And I think that's interesting. That would be like if George W. Bush was elected immediately after his father, George Bush, and then we called that democratically elected.
Yeah.
Is that really democratically elected?
No.
And that's a fantastic question. And the deal with this really is that this is another Western-backed country in Africa that has fallen to coup, revolution, whatever you'd like to call it.
Yeah.
But the people that are stepping out that are doing this, they're absolutely coming out and saying, we're doing this because we want our country to benefit us. We want our resources to benefit our people.
That's why people in Libreville, which is the capital of Gabon, they are supporting this. As a matter of fact, if you look at the history now, just within the last 8 years, we got about 8 countries that changed. And as we speak, there are countries now in Kenya,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, and it was another country, I forget which one, that they are now Chad, if I'm not mistaken, they
Mhm.
are changing the military, putting some on retirements
Yeah.
and putting in you because they're seeing what's coming.
Right.
And because this France saying now France doesn't want its ambassador. We talked about this before.
Yeah.
Well, France want to have a justification for why it will use a military.
Yeah.
And I hope, here is what I hope, understanding a little bit how international
Mhm.
protocol works when it comes down to embassies. Any embassy in any country is
Yeah.
considered a territory of that country.
Yes.
So when the French French ambassador refused to leave, that gives two options to the host country,
Mhm.
either to storm in the embassy, which if they do,
Yeah.
they're breaking international law. That's
Yeah,
just the norm
absolutely.
of treaties, how
Absolutely.
it
Yeah.
works. However, if they do it,
Mhm.
France will have a justification.
Right.
Our ambassador was under attack, or the staff, or the embassy. We are obligated to defend. How are you
Yeah.
going to defend it? By allocating military, which will
Interesting.
open up the door.
Yep.
That's what I hope Niger will think twice before acting,
Yeah.
because the deadline has passed already.
Oh yeah,
So-
I think it's like long past
It
by a
was
couple of
Sunday.
days.
It was
Yeah.
Sunday, yeah. So, and this is why now you tie this, like I always say, I don't like to
Mhm.
repeat myself, but I say it, in geopolitics, nothing happened in vacuum.
Absolutely.
So the EU, by stating we're going to send civilian and military,
Mhm.
you put the dots together. This
Yeah.
is where analysis comes in, is to
Absolutely.
understand. This is not about democracy.
No.
It never was.
No.
This is about access to resources,
Yeah.
and countering the presence of China and Russia in
Yeah.
Africa. That's
So
what it's all about.
okay, so much that you just said is really important.
Yeah.
Let me play let me play what Lieutenant Colonel Ulrich Madumi, who is the spokesperson, said, and then also what the newly ousted president Ali Bongo said, because it's interesting to watch the situation. There's a lot of these videos floating around right now, but they'll show you a couple of things. First of all, what these people are actually saying, but then they're also shots of the ballot boxes from the presidential elections. It's a plastic, basically, like big Tupperware that has some zip ties on it where you just stick a letter in the hole. And I was like, is that
easy to?
If we saw that here in the United States and said, "Oh, that's the easy democratically elected government," we would lose our minds here.
That's true.
So let me show you guys this, because as I was watching this video from the Wall Street Journal, and the Wall Street Journal actually did a pretty good job of piecing this together. So first, let's take a look at, because one of the big things that actually happened during this is that people went out into the streets and celebrated. And that's an interesting sign during a coup. If your population, are they celebrating, or are they having issues? This does not look like they are protesting. This looks like they're celebrating the fact that this happened.
Au nom du peuple gabonais et garant de la protection des institutions, avons décidé de défendre la paix en mettant fin au régime en place.
Look at this. Look at these ballot boxes. Wow.
And that's the president. That's Ali Bongo.
Yes.
Yeah.
But geez, look at this. If people in the United States saw that this is the way that this voting was taking place, I mean, to each their own, obviously, but clearly there would. Oh, here's his speech
that we have all over the world, to tell them to make noise, for the people here have arrested me and my family.
Okay, I just wanted to share that with you guys, because this is, what is it? A video's worth, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but a video is worth millions,
million.
right? And so what are we watching really happen here in this situation, you know?
Well, it's the changes now that's taking place on. As I said earlier, Africa is it's now or never.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't, they deserve it. I mean, how
Yeah.
long? I mean, we haven't had any policy for us, at least towards Africa, and it was never intended for really sort
Yeah.
of helping the continent to improve despite its resources. And this is why
Right.
the European Union doesn't care for Africans. They care for
Right.
the access to resources. France, nuclear power plants.
Yep.
If they want for uranium from Africa, I don't know where they're going to get it from.
Well, and that's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And this really comes on the heels of, you know, like we were talking about earlier, this comes on the heels of the fact that we now have severe natural gas, more or less, oil
Yeah.
and natural gas shortages for Europe. And one of the things that we're going to talk about later is the fact that, you know, the British government basically said to Brits, you guys have to turn off your heaters in
yeah.
the evenings to conserve, to conserve, without saying we're kind of screwed. This giant pipeline that was supposed to be built
Mhm.
coming from Africa into Europe, the pipeline from the United States into Europe, and Nord Stream 2, which was sabotaged.
They create,
Right?
yeah. But
So-
also, it's due to their own failed policies.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
followed blindly. Why would you follow policy that you know it's gonna lead you to the dead end and end up crumbling your economy? So it's
Absolutely.
their fault.
It is, but the people are paying the price for that. So instead
That's
of
the sad
sitting there
part.
and telling them
Yeah.
this is why this is happening to you, we're hearing, oh, you know, it's because of you know
Yeah.
climate or
Well,
whatever
are you
it
gonna
is,
trust the
right?
Western countries?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so apparently Africa is not doing that either. So this is coming on the heels of something very important that
Yeah.
you just mentioned.
Mhm.
And that is that China and Russia's influence in Africa now, specifically the region where all these countries are starting to have coups,
Yeah.
has increased substantially. In fact,
Mhm.
before this happened, their trade with China, China was their biggest trading partner.
Partner. Yeah.
Not France, not the US, not other European countries, but China. So now we're seeing Wagner's influence.
Mhm.
We're seeing Chinese investment
Mhm.
in Africa. And all of a sudden, they have the strength and the courage to start overthrowing these colonial governments. And the colonial governments, like France, for example, they're saying, oh, well, we're doing such a great job, you know, taking care of the people. We're
What have
doing
they
such
done?
a great job. But if you go look at even go look at the video that I
Yeah.
just showed,
Yeah.
the condition of the average person versus where Bongo was living. I mean, he's
Yeah.
living in this like beautiful, opulent mansion
Yeah.
where, you know, where his people are, you know, basically, although Gabon is one of the wealthiest per capita in Africa,
Yeah.
that's not
But
saying
still,
that
it doesn't-
much,
yeah,
you
and it
know?
doesn't translate to the average person there.
Right.
So the idea for whole Africa, it's and this is why the question that I am sure they are asking now is sort of what has the EU done for us?
Right.
Because literally, when you look on the ground, what are the results? What can
Oh,
you see?
absolutely.
You know, you look at, for example, and I always challenge those who argue otherwise. Well,
Yeah.
China is there to exploit Africa. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
Yes, China is there to have access to natural resources,
Right.
but
Straight
China
up.
is also building
Mhm.
infrastructure for when one of our government officials travels to Africa,
Mhm.
that airport he or she landed on,
Yeah.
who built it?
China, most likely.
Yeah, it's kind of straightforward.
Yeah.
Same thing for the highways in Sudan. Who
Yeah.
built them? You know, I mean, it just, yeah. Well, China's not going to do it for free either.
Right.
So, because to China, the key will be now is also has to do with natural resources.
Yeah.
Lithium. I'll give you guys just a quick example. Has to do with lithium.
Mhm.
Why is that important?
Electric vehicles.
Electric vehicle.
Yeah.
China's units, it went up to just get this because I just did a video on this, did the research on it. It
Mhm.
went up from 1.9 million units in 2018 to
Yeah.
3.9 in 2020.
Wow. Wow.
So Now you see why.
That's almost a double.
Yeah. Now you see why the EU and Germany,
Yeah.
when we're going to talk about that car issue,
Yeah.
why they were so concerned. But
Yeah.
of course, you have to have access to lithium,
Right.
because you look at your smartphone, you look at any other
those are
devices,
battery.
without lithium,
Yep.
it will be none. So Africa happens to be rich. Yes, Australia is number one.
Mm-hmm.
In you got Australia and you got Chile. in
Yeah,
Latin
Chile.
America,
Yeah.
but you don't hear much about Chile because
Right.
the infrastructure. But
Right.
Africa, that's what China is there. But
Mhm.
Africans are okay with that because it's a win-win. for
Right.
both of them. Africans do not see this with the EU.
Right.
And the best example with France.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to France, every light bulb
Yeah.
that is produced, that electricity produced through a nuclear power plant in France,
Yeah.
with the uranium coming from Africa.
Africa.
That's a fact that it's just been that way. So Africans realizing,
Yeah.
okay, we've had it. And this is why you see more and more countries move in that direction.
Right.
And this is why you get Mali now and Burkina Faso declaring,
Mm-hmm.
and I stress this, guys, they now officially declaring their support, military,
Mm-hmm.
for Niger.
Yeah.
This is why ECOWAS didn't move.
Yep.
This is why France had to think twice.
Well, and France isn't, so, they're taking a strong stance, but they're not really doing anything about this
No.
situation, right?
No.
Like they didn't send, as far as I know at this particular moment,
Mhm.
they didn't send in troops. They didn't send in anything. And they actually only had, I think it was 350 soldiers on the ground because
Where?
they did
Where?
in Gabon.
In Gabon, yes.
Yes.
Because they have 1,500 in Niger.
Yes.
15.
Niger, they have more, but Gabon, interestingly enough,
Yeah.
has sort of been pulling away from France has been pulling away from Gabon for a couple of years,
Mhm.
which I think is very interesting because
Dynamics,
the sentiment in Gabon about the French is pretty bad as far as we've gotten reports on.
Yeah.
And so this is just, but President Macron, said that they were stressing out about it and that they support a free and transparent electoral process. So, and John Kirby here, from the spokesman from the U.S. National Security Council, said the situation in Gabon was deeply concerning to us, but that embassy personnel and staff and troops were all safe. Everyone
Yeah.
was safe. Everyone was accounted for. This doesn't seem like it was some big, explosive, catastrophic thing.
Yeah.
It seems like it was planned well enough to not hurt anybody.
But also, you have to always assess when you do those kind of issues, you have to always assess the reaction.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this, the reaction from France or the Western world in general towards Niger, compare it to Gabon.
Yeah.
Day and night.
Interesting.
Completely. So a reaction sometimes tells you a lot. That's like what we just did. And I'm be curious to see the reaction. With that, just this morning, we have approved $80 million for weapons to Taiwan. What's interesting about that is that this approval usually is only for sovereign states.
Yeah.
So we have switched it from, usually we used to give the aid through a third party.
Yeah.
Now we're doing it through a sovereign state.
Yeah.
So always watch for the reaction to an event that gives you an idea about its intensity.
Yeah.
So in the case of Gabon, you look at Niger, you look at
Mhm.
Gabon. Here is a coup, just a
Yeah.
revolution, a coup, whatever you want to use, just happened.
Yeah.
You don't hear much in
Right.
comparison to Niger.
Right.
So, but there is the key element to all this.
Mhm.
And the key element is our policy.
Yeah.
Once again, we decided to throw the French under the bus. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Because it really is the French right now
Taking the heat. That is true.
Because
not the US.
It's not the US. You're absolutely right. They were most present. It's their colony. They
Yeah.
speak French. I mean,
all of them. Yeah.
all of them speak French. So this was very much
yeah.
The US is kind of letting France just take the
heat.
heat
and
for
they
it.
will. Yeah. I'll be curious to see now what is going to be happening in Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say Kenya,
Yeah.
because we did have some very ups in Kenya. Everything used to go through Kenya also. and the Kenyan government. So I'll be curious to see how things will evolve
Yeah.
moving forward. And
So-
we will give you guys an update once we
So,
confirm the information.
one more just final sort of piece on this.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things I found most interesting is that the news of the coup reportedly triggered a sell-off in shares of European oil and mining companies
They know what's
with
coming.
operations on Gabon. So, as well as the country's dollar-denominated bonds.
Wow.
So we're looking at, you have situations like this, and you're looking at the economic impact of it for the European countries. Because that's ultimately what we're looking at here, right? We're looking at basically them being like, France, you guys are out. And that means no more access to oil or lessened access to oil and lessened access to their natural resources. So, like you always say, David, look at where the natural resources are.
That's true. That is true. It's very important to understand. And Africa is rich.
Yeah.
Very, very, very rich.
Very
into
rich.
all,
Well, speaking of natural resources, the United States has doubled its uranium imports from none other than sanctioned Russia.
Oh, whoever thought, right?
Whoever thought? From sanctioned Russia.
Yeah.
So the United States, reportedly, the United States' uranium purchase from Russia have doubled since last year. The U.S. bought 416 tons of uranium from Russia in the first half of the year. More than double the same amount period between 2022, and it's the highest level since 2005.
Yeah. And this from which article is that from?
Okay, so that is from
for our viewers to know.
SMTP.
Hold on, let me.
Yeah, sorry, if you can grab it. This is the one thing that I didn't make a note of where that's from.
I have it here.
So this is very interesting, especially so it comes from RIA Novosti. So that's originally where it comes from.
Yeah, we'll share it with our viewers. So they know.
Perfect.
I'm gonna put the link for you guys.
Yeah.
So just to know or see where that came from.
And it's also according to a report from RT.
Okay. My computer froze.
That's okay. I can post the link in a minute for you guys.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at that, because that's very interesting considering the demonization of Russia that's happened, which I that's a very complicated issue.
It is very complicated.
Watching the US politicians fumble around and basically say, "Oh, Russia bad, China bad." That's insanity. That's insanity, because the situation is so complex, but we have so much coming at us all the time. It's hard to pay attention to the complexities of any situation. And so most people, not just Americans, most people have no actual idea what's going on.
Well, let alone they don't understand the history.
Yeah.
The history of Russia or the Russian empire. I mean, when you go way back, that's why I devoted an entire chapter in my book about it. Because without understanding the history, you won't be able to put things in perspective. And this is one of the reasons why countries had sort of here in the US, sort of we didn't understand. Let me share the link with you guys here about this one here, because I have it.
Awesome.
So this way. So to understand this, there is always we have it with China.
Yeah.
We have it with some countries, believe it or not. There's always a channel within the government that is off record of the books.
Right.
So, and especially when it comes down to countries like Russia, like China. So despite what you hear, for example, now about what's going on with Russia, what's going on with China, there is always conversation behind closed doors.
And I think that's why it's important. We talked about how the Commerce Secretary went to China, right? So that was the least publicized out of all the secretaries going.
Yeah.
But I think it's exactly what you're talking about. And that's why I think the CIA director went to China also.
But those are open. I'm talking about the one behind closed doors. That is not
that we don't know about.
No, they won't.
Well, and I can tell you that seems to be happening.
So when we get, for example, uranium from Russia, I won't be
Mhm.
surprised, because even with the sanctions,
Yeah.
Europe, Germany was still getting gas from Russia
Right.
to a degree. Just they limit the capacity.
Well, and also it was being transferred to other countries, and then
Yeah.
to get around the
This-
sanctions.
well, you look at India was the selling the excess gas that's getting, or oil, I'm sorry, oil
Right.
from Russia,
Yeah.
was selling it to Europe,
Yeah.
making money on it.
Well, but it's around the sanctions
Yeah.
because it's from India.
Yeah.
It's not directly from Russia, even though that's where
Yeah.
it was coming from. It was just marked up.
Morocco did the same.
Mhm.
Morocco just added one item, I think one ingredients into. So now you have a list that doesn't fall under the sanctions,
Right.
and I was able to sell it to Europe.
Right.
It's a business decision. It's a smart move. Why not? Tunisia did the
Mhm.
same. Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
as rich as it is in oil,
Yeah.
was buying oil from Russia cheaper.
Well, it's cheap.
selling. Yeah, it's a business decision, business move. So
Absolutely.
for us, it's no different. And this is what the European didn't count on.
Mhm.
They didn't count on that by the time these tensions were fermented, because this didn't happen
Yeah.
overnight.
Yeah.
The whole reason for it, and I did mention this before for the record, we never wanted Europe to get closer to Russia,
Yeah.
because they were getting closer as far as economics.
Yeah.
And anytime you have access to energy, your economy will prosper.
Absolutely.
We didn't want that.
Yeah.
What we haven't told the European is that, we're going to sabotage the pipeline,
Mhm.
and we will sell you the gas at 5 or 10
Right.
times the price.
Right. And that's what's happening.
This is
That's
right,
what's
exactly.
happening.
Indeed.
Is they're buying oil and gas at much more expensive
Very.
prices. Very much
Very,
more
very.
expensive.
And they won't admit it, by the way.
Mhm.
They won't admit it.
Yeah.
European countries will not admit it, or
But-
the European Union, that is.
Right.
And this is why you see in France, or the whole EU for that matter. When I say the EU, what
Yeah.
are we talking about?
Right. Right. Germany and
That's it.
France,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Did you hear about Hungary, for example, going to Africa?
No.
Did you hear about Romania? Did you hear
Yeah.
about Greece? No, none of that
Right.
is going there.
Right.
It's France, and because that's where the economy is.
Mhm.
Now you see why they are doing what they're doing in Africa.
Yeah.
Because now they're realizing access to resources from
Exactly.
and the mine.
A huge problem. I think
big
you're
problem.
I think you're absolutely right.
It's and that's part of what geopolitics is all about,
Yeah.
because the idea of understanding the policies. This is again what we're
Mhm.
going to be covering in our course.
Yes.
In the course, the reason why we decided to do this, beside talking about the structure of the government, beside
Yeah.
talking, we're going to have a chapter there about foreign policy. And that's exactly why whoever wants to learn about this will understand that the decision we make in our countries,
Mhm.
in our country, end up not impacting us, but impacting other countries.
Right.
This is a
Absolutely.
real example for how a policy we embarked on, and that policy was to ferment tensions between Europe and Russia.
Yeah.
And how it ends up impacting a whole continent.
Absolutely. And people who had no idea that that's really what was going on.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. So you brought up the course, guys. It's live.
Oh, I know. We're
It's
excited.
live.
Finally.
It's live.
How
Yes.
long did it take?
I don't know, a while, but
Months.
we had to make sure that the quality was there. We had to
Of
make
course,
sure
yeah.
that the research was there for you guys. David is teaching it live.
Yeah.
He's
I will
teaching
be
it
doing that.
live. It is called How the US Government Works or Doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't. I'll
and
go
it-
with the latter.
Yeah,
It
I think
doesn't.
most people would.
I'll share a few things that not classified. I
Mhm.
can't talk about. You all know this, guys.
Of course.
I can't do classified stuff, but I will talk about some things that they need to know.
One of the craziest things to me about really any organization that's doing something that's less than beneficial for its population,
Yeah.
it's out in the open most of the time.
Yeah. People just don't
It's
know how
hidden. Yes, it's hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
And so that's why there are analysts, is to take the stuff that's hidden in plain sight and say, hey guys, I know there's all this distraction,
Hmm.
but pay attention to the thing that's hidden in plain sight. So the
No.
government course, check it out.
Yeah. Now you know why I've been attacked.
I know.
Yeah,
And if you guys want to know more about that,
that's another. I won't
check-
even bore them with, because it's drama. It's
well,
there are always entities, individuals that are gonna like what you're saying because
Absolutely.
you are talking
Truth.
truth.
Even though it's hidden in plain sight, they don't like it when it's brought to the forefront, right?
I know.
So anyway, government course, guys, it's geopoliticsandconflict.com/US. It is up. There is a 20% discount for everybody who is signing up from here, and it's GT20. So I'll put that up on the banner in a minute, but the discount code is GT20 for 20% off of the government course.
Great.
The welcome call is September 12th. It's going to be taught completely live by David.
Oh, yeah.
All the modules are up on the site. If you want to check them out, I'm very, very excited about this course, and it's live. Go check it out.
Perfect. So this is the whole idea of why, for example, when you see Europeans, the way they are behaving is because it's the reflection of our policy.
Right.
But they bear responsibility because it was their choice.
Yeah.
So just because there's a policy there doesn't mean you have to embrace it.
Right.
You could push back against it.
Right.
So simple as that.
Well, here's the thing. So it's always interesting to pay attention to the narrative that's happening.
Yeah.
Because, there's a Netflix documentary about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial that went on and all of that mess.
Mhm.
And I watched how much press was about that and how much people were interested in that situation when really that has no impact on people's daily lives.
Yeah.
But then you have something like this, or like the fact that countries are strategically de-dollarizing or strategically kicking the West out all at once.
Yeah.
Is it interesting that these African countries over the last very short period of time seem to be popping off one at a time? And specifically after China and Russia become their strongest trading partners.
Yeah.
That's what happened in Gabon is China became their largest trading partner.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they felt that they had the strength and resources to no longer need France.
Well, this is why you are realizing, for example, why we have why the US will ferment certain because in history, when an empire is going down, it has to create issues elsewhere.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this happening as we speak in Asia.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example here because that's a different topic for altogether. You look at the alliance between US, Japan, South Korea.
Yep.
You look at the military agreement that was signed in April between US and Philippines, which means Philippines now flipped.
Yeah.
And the recent one has to do with the sale of F-15s to Indonesia, which, by the way, I just released a video on it this morning. I'm going to share it with you guys just for you to see. Why is this important? It's because we have to ferment indirectly.
Yeah.
Indirectly, because Indonesia, if you know anything, it's
split,
sort of neutral.
Neutral. Yeah.
So I'm gonna be doing live on it at
Okay.
2:00, by the way. So if you guys want to join me,
shout out the name of the channel.
Geopolitical trends. I always forget. So
that's okay.
So that's what it is. Is the idea is sometimes you can push for something like that through analysis.
Yeah.
Because analysis coming from entities to create that divisions within. In addition to, of course, the presidential elections coming up in Indonesia. But that's our push indirectly. That's why I want you always to understand, guys. Look beyond what you are just looking at.
Right.
So here you hear, to tie it back to our topic about Russia, and you hear all these sanctions on Russia,
right?
And yet we are getting uranium from Russia,
right? And it's interesting because the places where it's important that we get things from Russia, that seems to be no problem, right? So uranium seems to be absolutely no problem, and especially something as interestingly volatile as uranium, right?
Otherwise, you have power plants. They can be, right? Nuclear power
it's
plants.
Nuclear, right?
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting that specifically has sort of been this big deal. And it really is a picking and a choosing of which policies apply to what. And I think you said this the other day, David, and I completely agree with you, that what seems to have happened is that the US putting these sanctions on Russia pushed over the Ukraine conflict, pushed the rest of the world into saying, okay, now it's time. Like it pushed it over the edge. And we're watching that happen right
happening,
now.
and that's just part of how changes in geopolitics
Mhm.
come. So, what is our next topic?
All right. Our next and maybe final, I don't know. We're going to talk
Yeah,
about
we'll
the
do
last.
the
Yeah, we'll
UK.
do. Yeah.
The UK.
So millions of Britons or
Yeah.
Brits are told not to heat their homes at night because of the net zero climate goals. Okay.
Where do you start with that, right?
Man, it's interesting how much, I'm not going to sit here and say whether I know that climate change is real or not. I don't know that.
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist. I really can't speak to that. What I can speak to is that climate goals tend to look like poverty. The climate goals tend to look like, here are all the things that you guys can't have. Except the people who are telling you can't have it seem to not think that the rules apply to them. And so only the rest of us can't have those things. The rest of us can't have meat. We can't have heat. We can't have air conditioning. We can't have personal vehicles. We
Yeah.
can't have, you know what I mean? These are all the things we can't have.
Yeah.
But they can have them just fine.
For them, yeah.
And so I think that this is the most prevalent issue in terms of whether, because like I said, I don't know. I don't know whether it's real or not, but I can tell you it looks like abject poverty. You can't have gas. We had Berman, Mr. Berman.
Oh, Art
Berman, that's right. Thank you for reminding me of his first name. Art Berman talked, and this was one of the most profound speakers I've heard in a long time.
We need to reach out to him and bring him back.
I would really like
Would you
it.
guys like to see Art Berman back here?
For those of you who don't know,
no.
he has been in the oil and gas industry. I think he's an oil geologist. He's a geologist.
Yeah.
And what he said basically that shifted my entire understanding of renewables and oil. What he said is that if we were to cut oil and gas right now, over half of the world's population would die because there wouldn't be food. There wouldn't be means to pump water, for example. So it would cause massive, massive upheaval. And we don't see renewables coming up in a way that takes that pressure off. So it's very odd to me. And either politicians are doing this on purpose, or right.
That's
or
how I feel.
It's just they're naive and not paying attention.
Yeah.
But I want there to be renewables. I want us to stop polluting the world. However, what is the cost of that?
Yeah, but at the same time, if you are to say that, when we have to, you got to think about how the globalists who jets from one continent to the next, how much carbon stuff they emit from the emission of that
jets,
carbon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's one standard for the average and another standard for the elites. Well, that's right there. It's unbalanced. So this is where you see something like this coming out of UK when they are asking the public to cut down on heat. Well, wait a minute. Is this applied to the prime minister, the incompetent Sunak?
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Does this apply to the royal family?
No, absolutely not. There's no way the royal family is going to cut their heat at night.
No. And this is why this is on a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
Even
the dog agrees.
Yeah. Come here. So
the dog's name is Ramen, in case anybody was wondering.
Yeah. So the idea of for them to be saying this, I think they're using this as a distraction. And you know why? It's because I just read an article, and I'll send the link about it. So that the debt, the public debt in UK is going up.
Right.
The last one I saw, it went up by more than 40% to almost 2.6 trillion euros. That's $3.3 trillion.
Wow.
Since the beginning of the COVID stuff back in 2 years ago. So what it means basically is that, and this is according to the article, it leaves now the country, more than its entire annual economic output for the first time since 1961.
Jeez.
So
that's a lot.
So when they are saying to the average Brit, hey, you need to cut down on heat by turning it off, whatever, they're not telling him or her about the amount of money they send into Ukraine.
Yeah. Yes. And
So,
you know what? We had that big issue because while Maui is in absolute ruin, in
yeah,
absolute rubble, here is Biden sending money to Ukraine,
it's
right?
ridiculous. Yeah.
And so somehow Ukraine, as I think it I think I don't remember who called it this, but it was like the world's favorite charity case or something like that
Mm.
for Ukraine. But the reality is the rest of the world is suffering. The Western world is suffering. And that's something that I think that people in other countries maybe don't know is
Mm.
that the people are suffering in the countries where the policy in the Western world, where the policy has been this bad for
Uh-huh.
this long. We are the people who are suffering, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is unacceptable. It's unacceptable to go and give money to other countries when
Your people
your
are, yeah.
people can't heat their homes at night. And this sounded like it would be crazy a few years ago.
Yeah, it's
It would be
reality now.
crazy.
Let alone now that the comedian President Zelensky is asking for $5 billion if we want him to allow elections next year.
Well, of
Yeah,
course,
you heard me,
that's
guys.
Democrats.
He's,
Democratically, not Democrats. That's
Oh,
democratically elected
democratically
government.
elected.
Yeah.
So what is basically the comedian saying is,
Mhm.
well, yeah, I will allow elections next year,
Yeah.
but you have to pay for it for about $5 billion price tag. Who the heck are you to dictate? But at the same time, we
Mhm.
have an administration that just
It's more
and by
like
the
writing
way,
checks
we're not
nonstop.
pointing fingers at just Democrats.
Oh,
Both
yeah, yeah.
parties do it. Just
Yes.
let's set this for the record.
Yeah.
Both parties doing it.
Both parties are doing it. Absolutely. I did
So-
not mean to say Democrat. I meant
Yeah.
Democratic.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Both parties are doing it.
$5 billion for it's kind of, it became to the point of so when you hear a statement like this in the
Mhm.
UK, you have they did the same in Germany.
Yeah.
They asked Germans to cut down on heat. But you create your own failure and you now shifting it to
The
average
average
Joe,
person,
average
yeah.
Jane.
Everyday
It's not
person.
right. And those leaders now, none of them is in a right frame of
Mhm.
mind, in my opinion. They're all corrupted, they're all incompetent, and they have no
Mhm.
interest in really representing the average person.
Yeah. Well, they're not average people, right? If you look at Rishi Sunak,
Well, he's a millionaire,
right?
let alone helping his wife evade 20, I think, don't quote me on this because
Yeah.
I remember either 20 or 28 million euros in
Mhm.
taxes.
In taxes.
Yeah. This is like,
I mean, our
the problem.
politicians don't pay taxes for the
we
most
do
part
the
either.
same.
So,
We do the
you
same.
know,
We do the same.
and neither
We
do
have
our
them-
billionaires. Our, Amazon, for example, Elon Musk, Tesla, all these people.
Yeah.
It's been a big thing actually for Donald Trump, where they're saying, show us your taxes. And one of the things that he said very early on was, you guys created a whole bunch of laws that make sure I don't pay a bunch of taxes.
Yeah.
So,
He's being smart.
but
So,
even taxes aside, right? Because taxes
That's
is
another-
such a weird,
Oh,
it's
it's
such a weird
another-
space. But taking that aside, somebody who is a multi-millionaire, which almost all of our politicians are,
Mhm.
and most politicians in the Western world, and now probably Zelensky too, from all the money he's gotten, right? But most of the leaders in the Western world are very wealthy. But if you don't ever have to worry about money, how much do you understand the lives of the rest of us?
Yeah.
How much do you understand a life where you have trouble paying the electric bill or paying the
Sure.
gas bill? I don't know. And I don't know his history. I don't know Rishi Sunak's history.
He came from well-to-do family, and his wife is also well-to-do financially. So
so he's probably
he's
likely,
from that circle.
Yeah,
so
it's likely
it's
he
not
hasn't
like
had that problem.
it's not like he just became a millionaire yesterday.
Right.
He came from and plus when you get involved in the Conservative Party, whatever,
Mhm.
The money aspect, it's a role into this. You
Yeah.
look at the history. But for him specifically, I don't know
Mhm.
about, for example, Gordon Brown, the former prime minister, or Tony Blair, or
Right.
I don't know their
Right.
background, whatever. But for Sunak, he did came from a family. So here is one interesting thing before I forget: the Office of the Budget and Responsibility in the UK
Mhm.
now warning that this debt
Yeah.
could belong to about three times
Jeez.
the gross domestic product over the next half century. if no
Wow.
action is taken, which most likely there will be no action
Yeah.
taken. You remember Jack Robert?
Yeah.
He's one
Oh,
of our,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's from there. And he one time, I remember him sending a note like, you
Mhm.
won't believe it, David, the inflation, how high it is. Of course, the government is not going to
Yeah.
disclose that.
Right.
And he's somebody I trust. He lives there. He's not going to just make up things and
Mhm.
say, there will be no reason for that.
Well, no, and we also feel it here too. So
yeah,
it's
we
not
do that.
unreasonable.
So when you have now this that could belong to this level,
Yeah.
so why are you all of a sudden putting it on the average? Those people are living from paycheck to paycheck.
Well, I mean, so here are the choices, right?
Yeah.
The choices are take the money from large corporations.
Mhm.
They're not going to do that because
No.
they have lobbyists. Take the money from the wealthy and the politicians. They're not going to do that either
No.
because that's who they are. Or take it from the regular people. And the regular people don't really have anybody to defend them. We don't really have anyone to defend us. Our politicians are supposed to be that. They're supposed to be our advocates.
No, they're not.
But
Don't.
I can tell you they're
Yeah.
not because the Western world as a whole is crumbling. And there's a lot here in the United States, people are very well aware that it's crumbling. They unfortunately, we have a two-party system that is blaming each other. So one party says that it's the other party's, Republicans say it's Democrats say it's Republicans, and no one is paying attention to the elites.
Yeah. And that
Right?
one, by the way, blaming each other,
Yeah.
it's just a game.
Yeah.
No more, no less.
Well, of course it is, because if you're blaming each other, then you're not blaming the people it really is.
That's true. Here is a question. Here's a question for you regarding this issue.
Mhm.
Do you think the UK should reach out and ask China for help?
Ooh.
Well,
Yeah.
the reason I'm saying this, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
We reach out to China and ask it to buy our debt
Yeah.
or borrow money. So the question for you, do you think the UK will reach out to China and ask for help? So just leave us the answer on the chat box. That's something to think about.
Absolutely.
So,
well, and will they buy it, right? I think.
well, then another question comes out of that question is, will China trust the UK? Because remember what the UK has been saying about China.
Right. So. Right. Well, no, and I think ultimately they won't. And they're the one thing I can say, because I have a fairly neutral stance on China, which you guys give me a lot of shit for. Not you, but you guys sometimes give me a lot of shit for.
Yeah, but they expressing their opinion.
Absolutely.
So remember, one thing we do in this channel, we welcome differences in opinions.
Absolutely.
Of course, as long as they are respectful. There is I have no tolerance for that nonsense. So, but I would not object to if somebody tell me, hey, I disagree with you. I welcome that.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
To me, that's what
especially if it's a thought through argument.
Yeah. And if civil discourse, that's what it's all about, because that's how we learn.
Right.
I learn more from comments. You won't even believe it.
That's why I read them. Absolutely. So, I do too. I really like reading them.
But if there is a comment that's kind of way off and not, I push back and I won't hold back, and I can get very nasty in my wording. I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
I don't like confrontations, whatever, but I won't hold back. I stand my ground if time calls for it. But your comments are welcome. So.
Absolutely. And you know what? If you guys disagree with me, I honor you for your opinion also.
That's what our community is all about.
Absolutely. Because every so often this is a crazy, stupid comment, but for the most part, you guys also respect our opinions on things.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate that. But ultimately, the one thing that I can say about China is they do seem to be very savvy business people. And I always say I think it's interesting because there's more than one way to take over the world, right?
Yeah.
One is through force, right? So that's wars and armies and police and aggression, right? The other is economic.
If you control finances.
You control infrastructure without needing war.
But I have to push back again.
Do it. Yes, please.
And for the simple reason. And the simple reason is this, did China force us to take money from them?
No.
So did China force us or asked us to sell them our debt?
No.
So it was our choice. So that's the same argument And believe it or not, last time we talked about China buying stuff.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, that day I had to go and dig into information. So
Oh, I'm
I am
interested.
gonna share,
Okay. Yeah.
you know, there are those who say, and
Mhm.
you were one of them, you
Mhm.
said they own a lot of land here, right?
Yeah.
They're not.
They don't.
They don't.
Okay.
Let me show you. And I'm gonna share a video.
Okay. I
was
interested.
surprised.
Yeah.
I was surprised. And we're here to learn, guys.
Absolutely.
We are here to learn. So let me share a video with you.
Because I'm interested in, is it private entities or is it public entities that are being talked about here? Because I don't know that private holdings, like I don't, my understanding is not that it's a bunch of private holdings.
Oh,
My understanding is that it's about a bunch of corporate holdings of
I
land
see your
here.
point. I see your
Because
point.
that's very different. Having individual
Yeah.
individual people versus corporate. Because what China seems to have done really well is in fact corporate.
Okay. All right. Let's listen to this. And you guys, I don't know if they can hear.
The
Yeah,
concerns
they should be
about
able to.
Fukushima nuclear treated contaminated water release, and we're moving on to our next topic. You know, there's this paranoia about China. Got to be worried about China. They're buying up all the United States. They're buying up all the farmland. Haven't you heard? Right? Okay, so let's go through the numbers. We're going to do this like everyone's a 10-year-old. We can go through the numbers and understand this really well. Here's the problem. Huge problem. You ready? Okay, so we got a total of 1.3 billion acres of agricultural land in the United States. Only 40 million of those acres, that's like 3% of the total, is owned by foreigners. Okay, got it? Of the 40 million acres, 30% is owned by Canada. That's 12%. Okay, we're going to bring up the rear here with the Netherlands at 14%. And then Italy at 7%, UK at 6%, and Germany at 6%. And hey, Germany is the third biggest economy in the world, the leader of the EU region, as we all know, the European Union, big, important country. They own 6% of the 40 million of the 1.3 billion acres of agricultural land. And then we have China, the rising world superpower, sweeping in to buy all the United States agricultural farmland. I mean, it's a major problem. We've heard, all these politicians tell us this. Oh, yeah, right. You ready? 400,000 acres. 400,000 acres is 3/100ths of 1%. That's the total that China.
It's not much. Yeah, 400,000 acres is not much.
Give me a break. You see, this anti-China propaganda scaremongering, it's a bunch of nonsense. You get the story, you get the point. We'll catch you later.
All right. So we want just to share it because you know what?
Yeah.
I didn't know it myself.
Right.
And I am glad you mentioned that because this is where we learn.
Mhm.
If you didn't say that, I would have not gone and digged through to find it.
Well, and so, okay, so that's interesting because one of the things that he speaks to, I really do agree with, that the narrative that China and Russia are causing all of our problems is ridiculous.
That is true.
It's ridiculous that it's foreign, foreign entities are causing our problems. That narrative takes the responsibility off of the people who are really causing them. And that is our own politicians and our own companies.
Yeah.
That's who's causing the problems here in the United States. Are Russia and China contributing? Probably, because everyone meddles in everyone else's country. That's just the way it is, right? Mm-hmm. So are they meddling? I would guarantee they're meddling to some extent. Mm-hmm. The US meddles in other countries too. So this is
it's our history.
It's our history, but it's their history too, right? Every major player, even if it's a smaller country, has an intelligence agency, right?
That's true.
Has cyber criminal, whatever, right? So they all have that. But for the narrative here to be that it's China and Russia's fault that we're in the situation that we're in, it is ridiculous, and it takes the blame off of the people where the blame needs to be.
And this is where that issue of the farmlands here, we all know that Bill Gates is owning more farmlands
Yeah.
than anyone here in the
Right.
US as an American.
Well, and I think that's a
So,
problem.
It is a problem.
I think that's a
Well,
problem.
it is a problem if you only know where those lands are.
Mhm.
Majority of them, based on what I found,
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Based on what I found, most of that land
hmm
near the waters.
Oh, that's
So
unfortunate.
that's to me
Yeah.
is a strategic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, it's
Mm.
strategic. He
Yeah.
doesn't do anything that isn't
Mm.
strategic, so that's definitely strategic.
Yeah.
But I absolutely agree with him in that sense that it is ridiculous to blame other countries
Countries
for
for-
the
Mm.
US's problems. And if we had amazing leaders who were visionary and who clearly were in touch with the American people, I would maybe feel differently.
That's gone. That era is
But
gone.
I
They
don't-
will. They will never be.
it wasn't
don't
in my
think-
lifetime at all, I don't think.
This gone. We're talking about way back, but that's a long gone. So.
Longer than I've been alive.
Yep. So anyway, this is why we want you to understand about the UK. So
Mhm.
what the government's saying versus what the reality is and
Yeah.
what's behind it. So always pay close attention to what's behind statements and announcements and so forth. So
Well, and look at basically putting people into poverty.
Yeah.
Right.
well,
Basically
that's also by design.
right.
So
Well-
maybe we'll talk about that on a Rumble
I agree. And
because we're
there's
gonna need to do that about
yes,
what's going on.
absolutely.
You guys need to know.
We have a Rumble. If you guys want to check it out,
Yeah.
join us on Rumble. We
Yeah.
are live.
Yeah.
That's the link, and it's Geopolitics in Conflict.
Yeah.
We are growing to sort of a bigger network. So
Yeah.
check that out on Rumble.
And I will be just to announce to you guys, I will be doing locals.
Yeah,
I
locals.
just did one yesterday, and I will be doing one, I think, tomorrow.
Let me see if I can pull it up. It's
Mm.
geopolitics.locals.com.
Yeah.
We post extra content. We were gone for a
So,
little while.
I will be going there regularly. It's
Yep.
just because it's about time. We feel that we can talk freely here. You all
Mhm.
know. I'm sure you heard what happened to Redacted, for example.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. But anyway, we hope you find whatever we shared with you today very informative, and we look forward to seeing you next time. As always, prepare yourself for a changing world order. Till next time. Bye-bye.